Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining. This is Grace Morgan with the Taxpayers Protection Alliance, and I'm joined today by Robert Fellner, who is Policy Director at the Nevada Policy Research Institute. Robert, thank you for joining us.
Great to be here.
For me. So we were just briefly discussing this, the wake of COVID-19 and in Nevada. It seems like you guys have been closed kind of since mid-March onward. Can you describe how you guys have dealt with this new normal?
Yeah, it's been really, really tough for Nevadans. There are a tremendous amount of people who work in the service industry who live paycheck to paycheck. It's not just waiters. Restaurant owners, small business people. I think something like 40% of our workforce is not just out of work, but devastated in the sense that they rely on that steady stream of income, and it's gone, it's been gone, and it's not coming back. So I would suspect when everything is done, Nevada will be clearly hit the worst out of any state. And the long-term effects are going to be devastating. It's not bouncing back. Even in the best case scenario, we have a vaccine, everything like that. The jobs that are gone are going to take a really long time to come back.
Yeah, it is truly devastating to hear the stories from some people. And you guys at the Nevada Policy Research Institute, you have been doing great work helping to get the state reopened in the right way by providing various detailed policies that could be implemented. Could you give some, brief overview of the policies you guys have been proposing?
Well, one of the things, it's not our policy, it's the CDC, but one of the things that we've been pushing for is targeted approaches, right? Right now the governor has blanket statewide stay-at-home shutdown orders, which makes no sense whatsoever, which is probably why the CDC said you can implement these guidelines on a county-by-county basis. It's not because they think county commissioners have the same power as governors. It's because of science, your treatment depends on the patient or the climate or the scenario and the environment. And nowhere is that more clear than Nevada. Rural Nevada could be its own country. It has nothing. It's so different on every level compared to a major tourism spot like Las Vegas, and the data shows that. If you look at, our combined rural counties, it's called the Quad County area. It's about 160,000 people. Had one death and 4 people in the hospital out of 160,000 people. And it's not even that, the numbers are so low that the hospitals have such excess capacity. It's their normal lives are social distancing anyway. It's so spread out, it's so vast, you have farmlands and ranchers. So it's like full compliance with the CDC guidelines happens almost all the time anyway.
Yeah.
So it's very frustrating to see the lack of a scientific approach for stuff like that, and the long term. We have a ton of policies about, because our state government is so dependent on tourism, and sales tax and gaming tax, I think, make up around 40 to 45% of the budget, and those things are going close to zero.
Wow.
Yeah, no, the state budget is going to have to make like a 20% cut next year, like a real cut, not a government cut where we wanted to go up this amount, we only went up this amount, like actual 20% cut. So there's a bunch of things they can do. School choice would save money. They could end all their giveaways like prevailing wage, where public agencies have to pay 60% above market rates on construction projects. So we have all of that stuff, and we'll need to get to it because the government. There's just not the money's not there. But because the economic pain is going to be so severe, our number one concern today is lessen that as much as possible for the area. Follow the CDC guidelines. Counties should be treated on a county by county basis. Rural Nevada should be open in the sense that there should not be a mandate today. Should have been yesterday.
Absolutely. So going back to the small business angle, according to Small Business Administration, small businesses employ almost 500,000 people in Nevada. You've heard from some of these businesses about how COVID-19 has impacted them. Is there a kind of message that they're trying to get out to the people of Nevada and the government?
Well, yeah, they're very frustrated. Our big paper here, the Las Vegas Review-Journal, just had a story yesterday about that. And our mayor, she kind of got, she's not, her messaging isn't great, and she kind of got widely mocked after going on CNN and saying some things that were, not great. But her overall thrust, where she's coming from, she's seeing the devastation, and she's really, frustrated and wanting to do anything she can to help. Because again, it's not just that we have so many people out of work, we have so many people who live paycheck to paycheck, including the restaurant owners themselves, not just the wait staff. I mean, you're talking huge percent of our economy. I don't know how they're paying their bills because they go to the state unemployment website and they still can't get their unemployment checks either, right? So that is the frustration. And it's also that it's not snapping back. It's like, politicians don't have a firm grasp of supply chain and how economies work. And a lot of these restaurants aren't coming back. A lot of these small businesses just aren't there. All of their reserves are depleted. Unemployment's great and all, but it's not going to do the same thing as having a steady stream of income, which is gone.
Mm-hmm. It's not sustainable. Life is not sustainable like this. Exactly. For anyone, especially a small business owner who has to keep their lights on. Like you mentioned earlier, in regards to the state budget, do you guys have any specific suggestions for state legislators on what they should be looking for in terms of the state budget?
Sure. So, like I said, they're going to have to make massive cuts. It's looking like 20% next year. There's a bunch of stuff we have. One of the, to us, most obvious is school choice because it saves money. The state is hemorrhaging so much money on education and not getting any results. We also really would like, it's not directly a budget item, but something the state can do is really ease up on the occupational licensing stuff. We're one of the, I think, third or second most onerous states in the nation. After this economic bloodbath, we got to do everything we can to get people back to work. So yeah, those are some of our big priorities. Pension reform. Pension reform's frustrating because that should have happened 10 years ago. So even like if I'm given complete control of the government, there's still a big bill to be paid. There's really no way around that. But at least embracing that as opposed to keeping, no longer kicking the can down the road would be nice.
Yeah, of course. I think occupational licensing is a great thing to bring up in terms of getting rid of these onerous government regulations that could easily help people get back to work when they are supposed, when things open up again.
Yeah. And I would add to that, this was always going to be a problem. There's no scenario where this happens and the budget is balanced, right?
Exactly. Yes, exactly.
The harm is amplified because government has grown so far outside of its narrow and legitimate scope, right? It does so many things that it spends so much money and has so many programs that really the private sector should be doing. And there are other things that are like, we have the State Office of Economic Development, which is an agency that hands out tax breaks to really rich and powerful corporations. Like, that's crazy, right? That shouldn't exist, right? Tesla and Amazon even said that when they would get the handouts, like, oh, we were going to come there anyway because of your proximity and low tax environment. But if you want to give us a $1.4 billion tax break, we'll take it. So it's like, why that agency should not exist, not just because of the revenue that you would save from not employing those people, but because the revenue that we would have coming in because businesses would still come here if you have a low tax and low regulatory environment. So again, yes, the situation is always going to suck, but that's a big problem too, is government has grown so big and so expanded so far beyond its scope that it makes it that much worse, I would say.
Yeah, absolutely. So we were discussing this earlier, but I read yesterday that the governor said the casinos will most likely reopen in the second or third phase of reopening. How do you envision the traditional Las Vegas reopening, and what do you think we'll see as the new normal?
Yeah. So the first problem there And it's why kind of we're opposed to the whole mandate in the first place, and kind of being okay with yielding our civil liberties in a time of crisis. So no one knows what that means. Third or fourth phase, like we don't know what the metric. The guy shut down the entire state. It's the biggest violation of civil liberties of my lifetime. There's no information of what the results we're looking for is, what the timelines are, what the metrics. It's all, I'm pretty sure that they're just making it up as they go. So that in and of itself is insane. Like you said, they're going to open in phase 3 or phase 4. I don't know what those phases are because he hasn't told anyone. So that's pretty frustrating. But to answer your underlying question, when things open up, it's going to be a really, really suppressed environment. I mean, and all these companies are going to be implementing kind of the similar surveillance type activities that we've seen in China in terms of thermal scanning people's temperature, putting up glass partitions that, so you're, separated from the blackjack dealer and the guy next to you. So that, I mean, to me, it just seems very likely that even when things rebound years down the road, activity is going to be suppressed because it's just going to be less fun, right? I mean, who's rushing to the casinos to be sitting next to panes of glass? And you got to do it. I get it, but it's just another element that's going to, extend the economic devastation.
Yeah. Not only does that, take all of the fun out of the casino, but also when you think of like a slot machine, are they going to have staff going around after every person and, wiping down every single, touch screen, every single lever to pull the crank? It seems a little outrageous to think about what the lengths they'll have to go through.
Right. And so you think about that from an economic standpoint, where does that actually translate to? It's higher costs. So you're going to have less demand, less revenue coming in because it's less fun, but your operating costs go up, which means you have less profit, which means less tax revenue for the state, which is very, very reliant on not just sales tax, but gaming tax. So again, in all scenarios, it's a contracted, suppressed environment.
Absolutely. So Robert, where can some people go to learn more information about Nevada and what you guys are working on?
Sure. I mean, they could go to our website. It's, we're Nevada Policy Research Institute. So it's just our initials, npri.org. We're on Facebook, Twitter, all that stuff. We have a mailing list you should sign up for because that's the best way to know what we're doing on a daily basis. We'll keep you updated. Check it out.
Absolutely. Well, thanks so much for hopping on the phone with me today. It was great to chat.
I know. I was going to get on for like another 2 hours. Great.
Awesome. Thanks.
Good to see you, Grace.